I think we're rolling. Cool. Okay, so here we are. This little video is about writing music, a pragmatic approach. You want to make music. You're a synth nerd, and you may or may not have any music education. Fine. You got synths, you got hardware, software, whatever. All you know is that you want to make music with synths. Great. Okay, fine. But maybe you're not happy with the music you are making, right? Maybe the notes that you put in your sequencer or, hardware in your DAW, whatever, the notes you're choosing don't quite get you to where you want to be, right? You don't quite understand how to choose which notes to use when making your parts, bass lines, melody, harmony. Well, here's a pragmatic approach to making music that can give you a leg up when it comes to creating your music, or at least when creating music that sounds the way you want it to. We are recording here in Maison Stark, however you want to say it, my house, which is a 300-year-old house in Boston, Massachusetts, near Boston, Massachusetts, and as a result, the house has no sound treatments, so you'll hear the nice sound of the main street of my small New England town. It's called tone. We have tone here. So anyway, so if you hear, people screaming wicked pissa things and having shrieking matches outside, if it's just flavor, it's okay. So how do we pick notes? Well, we have all these notes on the piano, 88 notes on the piano, 127 or 28 notes in the MIDI sort of spec, right? We have all these notes to work with. Which ones do you use, right? How do you know? Well, it's really actually simple, okay? If you're trying to pick what two notes to play together, you have to know that all of those notes are related to each other by a relationship of distance, okay? So if you start walking up the piano keyboard, all right, you're walking up, each of those steps is called a semitone. A semitone is the unit of measurement between these steps. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 0 and 12 are the same notes, and then it just repeats again. All right. All across the piano keyboard, you just have 12 of these notes, one semitone away from each other, and you can measure the distances between them. Really what music comes down to, this is my own personal oversimplification, is picking some notes that you like the voice, you like the phrase that it says. Pick a bass line, one note at a time, do. And then when it comes time to add another part on top of that, add a harmony or add some sort of line or chords on top that sound good to you, you think about the distance between the note that's playing and the note you're going to lay on top of it. Okay, so if I've got a bass line that does this, okay, those notes, A, B, C, G, all right, very simple. Let's do it this way. Here's an experiment. Does this sound good or bad? Right, that's the bass line. But the notes I'm choosing to put on top of it, they don't sound good. But how about this one? That sounds better. So what's the difference? The bass line notes are the same in both of those. So what's so special about the second 4 notes that I chose as opposed to the first 4 notes that didn't sound so good? It has to do with the distance between the notes in the bass line. So here's the first note of my bass line. Okay. The note that we like here, measure the distance between these two. So if I grab my mouse here, we start at 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those two notes are 7 semitones away from each other. We like the sound of 7 semitones. If I play the same distance but different notes, it sounds good. Right? So that relationship, the distance of 7 semitones, is pleasing to our ears. Right? But the relationship of, let's say, so how many is that? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The relationship of 6 semitones, the distance. We don't really like the sound of that. Now, often people say, oh, you're playing a wrong note. Well, there are no wrong notes. This is the concept that I want you to take away from this video. Of all the notes on the piano keyboard, there are no wrong notes. There are just distances that sound peaceful. I'm going to introduce 2 new words. When you're measuring, when you play 2 notes at the same time, sometimes they sound really good together. We refer to that as consonant. Those things are consonant. And the things that we sort of sound more harsh or a little tense, we refer to those as dissonant, okay? So some of the distances measured in semitones make a consonant sound when you play the 2 notes, and some make a dissonant sound. And it's not like one or the other, it's like a sliding scale, a spectrum, all right? So you can have things that sound very consonant, and you can have things that sound kind of consonant, right? That doesn't sound bad, but it doesn't sound as good as, it's not as consonant as that. That's okay. It's a little more dissonant, but it's not crazy dissonant. And that's all you got to know. When you've got all these notes on the keyboard, you can just measure the distance and then find out, is that distance, is that interval, is that a consonant or dissonant? Is it more towards the consonant side? Is it more towards the dissonant side? And your ear will learn what the right thing is, like what sounds consonant and what sounds dissonant. But in the meantime, while you're learning, you can use these charts. Ta-da! Okay. So if you pick 2 notes, and we counted, those 2 notes are 7 semitones apart. You just check the list here, 7 semitones. It's called a perfect fifth. You don't have to worry about the names. You can learn them if you want to. But the color coding goes from blue to red. And blue is really, really consonant, and red is really, really dissonant. Okay? And so 7 is very consonant. If I take it down the distance, just down 1 more to 6, that is dissonant. If I take it down to 5, that's more consonant. Down to 4, a little more dissonant, but it's still pretty consonant. Let's keep going. Okay, so a little more dissonant still, but still pleasing. Okay, we're heading towards the dissonant area. Right here. That's the distance of 1. And then right. And a distance of 0 is equivalent to distance of 12. Right, an octave. So you can use this chart when you're picking notes. Let's say I've got that bass line. And I want to pick notes that are consonant for those bass lines. So let's hide one of these here. Hang on a second. We'll bring this one back up. So here's the same chart. The one on the right was sorted by color. So you can reference the numbers here. But let's look at my bass line. All right, well, if my first bass line note, if the first note of my bass line here, I want to find another note to play with it, right? And I want it to be very consonant. So let's take a fifth. So 7 above that would be this note. Now I just played it, but you can count. You can literally just count it up. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so that's my bass. This will be my melody. When the bass plays this note, my melody will play this note. When my bass plays this note, right? Let's go, let's try a minor 6th. It's still, it's not as consonant, but, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's a minor sixth. And then my next note on my bass line is this one. And I'll keep it on that same note. But the distance is now 7, so that's a perfect fifth. And then my last bass note is this G, and I'll do another perfect fifth. Right? Perfect fifths are power chords, in case you didn't know. If you play a guitar, you play a power chord, that's a perfect fifth. So here's my bass line. Right? And here's my melody line. And then when you play them together, perfect fifth, minor sixth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth. Those sound very consonant and they're pleasing to our ear, right? So what I'm trying to get across is there are no wrong notes. You can choose any note you want. And just when you play two notes together, know the distance between them. And then check this chart or make your own chart or use someone else's chart, but this one's here, it's convenient, to know how dissonant or consonant that relationship is. And really, that's all there is to it. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. Let's say I've got this dissonant sort of interval. Okay. Well, it's really dissonant because they're sort of playing at the same time. But if you're playing, say, a fast melody line or a fast bass line, you can alternate between them. And it doesn't sound so bad. Right? Those were definitely a whole bunch of little minor seconds, intervals of 1. Because the interval from here to here is 1, and the interval from here to here is 1. And it's okay. Do you remember the movie Jaws? Or however it went, I don't know. Anyway, so he was shooting for dissonance because it makes us tense, right? There's nothing wrong with dissonance. In fact, if you listen to a lot of jazz, what makes jazz jazz is the choice of using things that are slightly more dissonant, right? So that's it. No wrong notes. That's the concept, okay? We're talking here about how to write music, a sort of pragmatic approach to writing music. Well, that's the only real concept I want you to understand. No wrong notes. You have all the notes on the keyboard available to you. You just need to measure the distance between the notes you choose and know whether they're consonant or dissonant, or how consonant and how dissonant they are. That'll help you a lot. Okay. Now, given that you know that, your first step can be choosing a scale. All right. What's a scale? Scale's a list of notes. Scales, you can make your own, but there's tons out there. All right. When I say make a scale, I'm talking about a list of about 8 notes. Right? Some scales have more, some scales have less. But in Western music, the average sort of scale you're going to run into has 8 notes, 7 distinct notes, and then the first and last are the same note. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's the scale. And then first note repeats. You should pick a scale. And then what you do when you're writing your music is you only use the notes in that scale. And you continue to measure the distance in semitones between the notes you're choosing to know how dissonant or consonant they are. All right? So everything we are talking about here is going to be you being aware of the distance between the notes you're choosing when you're writing your harmonies. Okay? But pick a scale. This is A minor. Now, you don't know scales. Fine. Where can you find a scale? Well, your software or your hardware may provide scales for you. If you've got a modular synth with a smart digital oscillator, I bet it's got a quantization mode where it basically forces any notes you send to it to fit to a scale. If you use an Ableton push or a Novation circuit, right? Those interfaces, you can dial in a scale and say, only let me play the notes inside the scale. And it's basically a way that constrains you when you're writing music. So you'll be limited to that scale. That's good because scales have a mood to them, right? A minor, sort of pensive, kind of sad maybe, minor scale. Major scales are happier, and you can explore, right? Try out all those scales. If you use Ableton or Logic, right, there are MIDI plugins you can drop in that will constrain the notes you play on your keyboard or your controller that's coming in to a particular scale. Let's see. Actually, if I say, maybe I can find one for you. Yeah, if you, in Ableton here, which is what I'm using for this, there is a scale plugin. And if you open it up, there's all of these scales defined that you can use. And you drag one of these babies out, drop it on your MIDI channel, and it will constrain you to a particular scale. But that's another video. There are tools that will let you do this. Okay. Now, so let's say we pick a scale, A minor. The very first note in a scale is referred to as the root. In this case, it's A. Roots are important because it's sort of the home base. When you're writing your music in a particular, using a particular scale, you want to know what the root note is and sort of go there relatively often. You want to hang out around the root. So we want to go. So I'm sort of repeatedly playing that root note and sprinkling on some of the other notes in the scale as, to add a little tension, to play part of a melody, do something like that. Hover around the root. It's always safe to go there. And it sort of maintains the feeling of the scale you're using. And when you're choosing the other notes, you can measure the distance against the root. Okay, that's consonant. That's kind of dissonant. Also kind of dissonant. Very consonant. Right, so what just happened there? If I play this, what I'm doing is going consonant, dissonant, dissonant, consonant. I'm going not so tense, add tension, release tension. And that's what writing music's all about. It's the ups and downs. It's the roller coaster ride of tension, of consonance and dissonance as you're moving people through your music. So let's recap. What do we have here? You understand that all the notes are fair game. You measure the distance between them in semitones and reference on these charts, and you'll understand whether something is consonant or dissonant, two notes in a relationship. Given that, pick a scale. I didn't show you. You say, but Luke, I don't know which scales to use. I know nothing of scales. All right, fine. I Googled scale, piano scales, and lo and behold, pianoscales.org. Done. Go here. Pick some scales. Let's do a minor scale. Oh, let's see. Natural minor. There's lots of different kinds of scales. You can go through them and explore them all. You're not going to break anything, right? No keyboard's going to say, this keyboard only plays, natural minors. If you try and play a harmonic minor on this particular synthesizer, it will, in fact, explode. That doesn't happen. So go play with these. Look through. This particular website, all right, that's cool. It's got a list of the notes. It shows them on the keyboard. Even fingerings if you're interested in that sort of thing. If you've got a little piano skill in you. Use this as a website, right? Pentatonic scale. What is that? Penta means 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 notes in this scale. 6 if you count the ends, but right. Pentatonic scale is super useful. Every culture in the world almost understands pentatonic scale. It's kind of cool. Anyway, so it's there as a resource. So you understand that the distance measured in intervals between two notes gives you an idea of how consonant or dissonant it'll be. Great. Then you pick a scale. Fine. Scale has a root. Great. Hang out around the root, or always come back to the root, or touch on the root periodically as you're writing your melody or your bass line or whatever. That will keep you in a good place with the scale, sort of upholding the scale's idea that's mood. Sprinkle in some intervals and you can make them more consonant or more dissonant. You can move people along in your music up and down on the scale of tension, right? Add more dissonance. resolve back to more consonants, have a good time with it. And really, that's about it. Let's see. Let's do a demo. What do we got here? All right, I've got some clips that I have prepared. All right, so I've got this A minor scale. Okay. And what we're going to do is, I've got some clips here. So what have we done here? We've taken our melody line here, which is all root A, and our bass line, which is all root A, and we've added in some E's. Right? So that's 7 semitones above it. That's 7 semitones is a perfect fifth. It's very, very consonant. Okay. So how does that sound? All right. It's getting a little better. All right. So now we've also changed this A, right, to a D. A little more dissonant, but still fairly consonant. All right. Our next interval would be to maybe add a little passing tone here, A, B. Right. Fine. Okay. So we can duplicate that. So I've doubled the length of the clip, and I've varied them so that we've got a little bit of a melody line. All right, that last note, pretty consonant. Excuse me, that last note, pretty dissonant. That's okay. Let's jump through here. Let's turn it into a little melody. All right, so that's within the scale. All of those notes are just notes in the 7-note scale that we're working in A minor here. Okay. So if we put a bass line on that, let's measure the intervals for as these notes are playing. The distance between the melody line to our A. So you could see they're actually more than an octave apart, but I just gave you the basic interval distances. Okay. Now, let's layer something else on top. We had this initial pattern, and we duplicated it and sort of modified it, made variations on it. Another thing you can do that's an interesting creative thing is to just have a very short repeating pattern. Right? That's what we've got here. 3 notes repeated over and over and over again, with a little variation here, 3 notes over and over again. And the notes we've selected here are also in pleasing distances from the root note. And so we'll throw those in too. Once you've got this going, your bass line has been playing the root the whole time, boom, 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 boom. And that's fine, but it doesn't have to stay there, right? Other pieces, other notes in the melody are coming and touching on the root, so your bass line can move away from the root. You can do something like this. So here we are building this piece of music, and it's all based on what are the intervals between the notes and whether those are consonant or dissonant. That's really all it comes down to. When you first start to do this, it's going to feel like it might feel like a lot of work, right? Because you're measuring, you're trying to figure out all these sort of count semitones, and is this 7 steps away? Is this 7 semitones away? 9 semitones? If you do this, for more than a few days, right? Spend a couple hours each evening after work or whatever you do. Maybe you're a student and you get to do this a lot. Great. But as you do this, your ear is going to start to learn these intervals, and you're not going to have to rely on a chart anymore. You're going to know, oh yeah, 7 semitones is a perfect fifth, and that we really like that. It's very consonant. You're going to remember, a diminished fifth is 6 semitones, and it sounds, very dissonant. And you'll remember these things. All right, so just bear with me and go for it. So we have these 3 sort of lines through our pattern. We've got a bass line, we have a melody line, and then we've got this sort of arpeggiated sort of high-end thing. Well, I did all these in a single clip. You can pull these out, right? So we'll pull out the high-end stuff here, give it a clip of its own, and here's our sort of vocal line, and here's our bass line, right? And, and it doesn't sound half bad. Like here. Anyway, so I hope this has been useful to you. What it really comes down to is there are no wrong notes. There are only interval measurements between 2 notes that you're playing. And when you know what the interval is, you can look it up and know, oh, this is very consonant sounding or very dissonant sounding or somewhere in between. And that's it. So have fun. If this is useful, leave a comment, or if you have any questions, let me know. And hopefully I'll get to hear some music you guys build this way. Have a great day.